Hello and welcome to my dungeon guide for Draakon Arena Normal Mode. This dungeon only has one boss called Caligar. Getting used to the mechanics shouldn't take too long, and in my opinion it's easier to learn than Akalath Quarantine and Corrupted Skynest Normal Mode. Anyway, let's get started right away. The first mechanic I would like to talk about is introduced by the message "Die, all of you." Right after the message appears, the boss will target each player with 3 rockets. These rockets can be iframed, but they can also be avoided by just moving around. This is then followed up by a 4th rocket, which leaves a safe spot in the middle and deals damage in an area around the safe spot. You need to make sure you don't hit other players with this AoE. There are 2 ways to do this. You can either group up or spread out. Usually the DPS group up and the tank and healer spread out. Assuming the DPS are behind the boss before the mechanic starts, the tank is in front of course, and the healer is to the side, then everybody just needs to back up away from the boss in a straight line. That way the DPS players' safe spots overlap, and the tank and healer are out of reach of any of the AoEs. In my experience, it's easier though if everybody just spreads out. I noticed that a lot of people often forget about the first 3 rockets, so if you try to group up with them, they will just stand still and get hit by the 3rd rocket, and they die before the final AoE even hits. There is enough space in the arena for 5 AoEs not to overlap, so spreading out is an option. For this mechanic, Caligar will jump up in the air and then slam on the ground. The moment he hits the ground, there will be an expanding circle AoE overlapping with a wave. You can iframe both with one move. If you're a melee class, you can just stay close and iframe the moment he lands, using 1000 cuts on Ninja for example, or take a step back while he is in the air and iframe towards him the moment he lands. Ranged classes can just iframe into the wave and expanding circles. Invulnerability skills such as Warp Barrier and Sorcerer work well for dodging this mechanic too. This mechanic starts with the message "Die in a fire player name", where player name is the actual name of the player he targets. The player that was mentioned will then have a ring of fire some distance away from the character. This doesn't do much damage, and it only does damage if you touch the ring of fire itself, so it's actually quite easy to deal with. Just stay close enough to the boss, so you don't make other players stand at the edge of the ring. This combo starts with Caligar using his foot to draw an outline of a big circle. Next, he stomps on the ground, which creates an AoE that fills the whole circle he drew in the first step. This second step needs to be iframed. As a 3rd step, he does 2 waves simultaneously, one towards the front and one towards the back. There will be 2 safe spots on either side of the boss. The last part is another wave that only expands backwards. It fills the same space as the backwards wave of step 3, but additionally also fills up half of the safe spots from part 3, so if you were in safe spot at part 3, just make sure you move towards the front for the last part. Step 3 and 4 cannot be iframed. If you're playing a ranged class, you can just move out of the circle as soon as you see the boss draw it in step 1. This boss has a shield phase. It will be introduced with the message "Die". For the first few seconds, the shield will not take any damage unless the healer uses Plague or Regression at the start of the shield phase. It is possible to break the shield even if the healer does not use this debuff, but the party needs higher DPS in that case, because they will have less time to break the shield. Breaking the shield should not be hard as long as everybody is alive and the healer actually debuffed it. Make sure you don't confuse the shield phase with one of the other 2 mechanics that have the message with the word "die" in it. Basically, if you see a message that has the word "die", Only run if you also see all of you. The first part of this attack is similar to the traverse cut skill warriors have. This part can be blocked. You will use both blades to thrust at the tank 6 times in a row. Next he will do a medium-sized AoE that can be iframed or avoided. This attack starts with the knee kick that brawlers can do. It is only aimed at the tank and it can be blocked. This is then followed up by a backwards wave aimed at the DPS players. The second part can be iframed. The boss will point at the tank with his left arm and then jump in the air and slam on the ground. The moment he lands, there will be a small circle AoE around him that stuns anybody who gets hit by it. This can easily be iframed or just avoided altogether. The next attack I'd like to discuss is an uppercut followed by a ground slam. The uppercut attack can be blocked, but the slam has to be iframed. The first part is only aimed at the tank, so the DPS players should not have to worry about it. But the slam will also reach melee DPS, so make sure you dodge that. Caligar also does this attack where he targets the player furthest away with secondary aggro and throws a blade at them. Then he pulls the blade back, doing damage for a second time. If you look at the boss, it is quite easy to see when exactly he throws the blade. Make sure you just iframe to the side at that moment. The pullback follows the same path back as the initial hit went, so by iframing to the side for the first one, you will dodge both. You can also use invulnerability skills like Ward Barrier to avoid getting hit. The boss will stomp his foot on the ground, which does a medium-sized AoE. This will knock you down and apply a cleansable bleed debuff if you get hit by it. The stomp can be iframed and blocked. It is then followed by a spin AoE of the same size, but this one cannot be blocked and has to be iframed or avoided. The second part does a lot of damage, so make sure you don't get knocked down by the stomp, else you will most likely die. This is one of Caligar's most basic attacks. He slashes at the tank with both blades at the same time. It puts a bleed debuff on you if you get hit, but it is blockable. This is the other basic attack. The boss will do 2 basic upward slashes in a row, which can both be blocked. The 2 upward slashes I just mentioned can sometimes be followed by a forward stab. All of this can be blocked. The boss will also do these 2 double slashes, which do a lot of damage but can also be blocked. Lastly, the boss also does this 3-hit combo, where he does 2 regular slashes followed by a cross slash. This one applies a bleed debuff if you get hit. Just like all normal attacks in here, this is blockable though. Well, this concludes my guide for the TERA dungeon called Draakon Arena Normal Mode. It's a fun dungeon in my opinion. Don't get demotivated if you're not doing well in here at first. It can be challenging the first few times, but as with all dungeons, you'll eventually get there if you just keep trying. I learned the mechanics for this dungeon from a written guide on essentialmana.com, and I used it to make sure I mention all the mechanics in this video guide. What I really like about the guides on Essential Mana is that they are split into sections for key mechanics, special mechanics and normal mechanics. That's also why I did the same in this video. In general, for learning dungeons, you absolutely need to know the key mechanics. Only knowing those is enough to learn the dungeon by running it. Though looking at the special and normal mechanics will help a lot as well. I think the written guides are perfect if you already learned the mechanics, but you want to look up a certain mechanic again, or if you want to make sure you didn't forget about a certain one. I will leave the link to the written guide in the description below. Anyway, if you have any questions or you would like to add some information, leave a comment below. Leave a like if this video was helpful and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching my videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!